Hey, welcome to week 4. This is the week when we plan the capstone. So this is going to be similar to planning the portfolio, only this time we're planning an app of some sort, or at least some kind of some that's going to show off our skills and even maybe learn some new skills. So many students have used the capstone as an opportunity to try something that we never covered in class. Because you've got the advantage of being in school and getting help on different kinds of new technology. So I encourage you to think beyond what you learned in class, but if there's something of interest that you want to develop using the technologies we learned in class, that's a very common thing to do, and I totally encourage that as well. So I'm going to look now at what we need to do the planning docs for the capstone. If you haven't decided what you want to work on, let's talk. It really helps, even a 5-minute conversation, but I'm available for more than that, of course, but even a 5-minute conversation can help you figure out what you really want to target. This is based on kind of what you want to be working on after you graduate, as well as what you want to learn to work on. All right, so let's take a look at some of the resources this week and the requirements. So once again, week 4, project concepting. So the idea is to spend some time thinking about what you want to do and then get in and use some tools to communicate your plans and your design docs. So here is the main page, and I'll look pretty closely at some of the requirements for this capstone so that you don't go down the wrong path here. So basically you can see that in this basic requirements there are a lot of things listed, and I want you to read those. I don't want to sit here and read those to you, but I definitely think you want to read those. But then looking down here at the rubric, I think this gives you a pretty good idea of what you're going to be graded on. So that kind of summarizes the capstone too. And I pulled out some notes here on perfect score for capstone, just to remind you of all the details that will be involved. And of course, this is spread out over the rest of the quarter. You'll be working on this every week until you graduate. So you have essentially 7 weeks for planning and implementation. And there's actually a lot of discovery involved in this project. So you may come up with a plan, but don't be surprised if you have to alter it as you get working on it. But we're going to be looking at, in the final project, accessibility, analytics, browser support, CSS, the data API, your deployment process, your dev setup, information architecture, JavaScript features, responsive design, visual design, HTML. So these are the outcomes that we're really looking at in this project. And this all should be kind of pulling together what you've learned over the course of the quarter and possibly bringing in some new learning. So that definitely happens. Sometimes we've studied Vue. Sometimes students will produce a React project or an Angular project. So there's really a lot of options there. And so take a look at the actual requirements here before you turn in your project design, because this will help you to make sure that you've got everything that we're looking for. And I'll show you some tools too here. And then for your discussion board, you're going to want to share with your classmates what you're working on. So it's just kind of a technical overview and at least one document showing your concept. So this could be a picture of a wireframe or design comp. If you want to turn in a whole PDF with everything to share, that's great too. So the resources, so we do have some resources. Here's the article on a planning guide. I kind of like this planning guide from Mozilla. It steps you through kind of a person. He or she did an app on location finder that determines where you are and plots it on a map. So he kind of shows you how he or she put it together. Do we know who wrote this? Sometimes they tell you, sometimes they don't. But anyway, the developer here put together a drawing, and hand drawings are fine. I mean, I like learning to use tools because they are efficient, and when you go to work and you want to put something on your resume that you worked with tools, they generally fit into the process of development and help with that. Then some comps, and some documentation, technologies, a test plan, conclusion. So I think this is a really good summary. And that is this Planning Your App from Mozilla. Then there's talk about tools, and you guys do have some experience, quite a bit of experience now with different tools. I added a couple of tools here, Adobe XD, if you're interested, if you're a designer and you want to work with some of the design tools. Adobe XD is free, and you can get in there and create prototypes. So you kind of set up images of your app, how you expect it will be, and then you can make the buttons clickable, so you can kind of have it like a storyboard where you could walk through how a user would experience doing things with your app. So that's a good thing to take a look at, especially if you're interested in design. And then Sketch, this is only available on Mac, but this is a very popular design tool, for user experience designers. So that's another thing, and you could try it for free. And I don't think it's very expensive. There might even be a student deal on it. But anyway, those are two tools that I added here. And then there's a link here, projects using Vue. So if you like Vue and you want to learn more about it and get better at it, then I encourage you to do a Vue app. I think it's a really good way to go, especially if you want to be a developer, a JavaScript developer. And this link gives you a list of a whole bunch of projects that other people have done using Vue. So looking at these, you might get some ideas about projects that you want to do. Now, please don't copy projects, okay? I know that's really tempting. You find something that's doing something you really like, an app, and you've got all the code, it's all open source, and you can just go in and, download it and make it yours. But seriously, for your own, you're paying money to go to school to learn how to do this stuff. If you go to work and you copy stuff, that's not going to be a good thing. So good to look at these for an idea, but not good to just out and out copy them. However, you can kind of use ideas from them. So where you see somebody doing something that you think is really neat, you can take some of that code and those ideas and work with them to make them your own. But yeah, I encourage you to do your own work. It really pays off in the long run to be able to do that. Then there's a couple of links here to past student docs, and so here's Rove Track. So he's keeping track of what's going on Mars. And one thing I really like about this is a very nice looking document, is that he outlines the data that he receives and describes it. So you are going to be working with an API in this, and that's one of the requirements. And if you can really understand your data, where you know that, okay, this field is all about this, the landing date is the date it landed on Mars. If you can kind of spell that out in your document, you will be way ahead, because I think usually one of the most challenging parts of an app that uses APIs is getting the data right and really taking advantage of all of the data that's made available. So that's a nice section. And then he's got comps and a timeline. You can do a manual timeline like this, just basically a spreadsheet or a list, or you can use Trello, something like Trello, to work out your plans. The one thing that this doesn't have that I do look for is an IA diagram. So, I expect you to at least have, you have maybe a single page app, and that's it. Sometimes you can use that IA diagram to describe how the user will interact with your app. Often there will be an extra page that you will talk about you and your project and why you did it. But anyway, I do kind of look for that. Something that indicates the organization of the information that you're presenting. Especially if you're wanting to go into design work, a lot of what designers do is go in and find a really messed up website and just kind of organize it, and that is what IA is about. So here is a project from last year, and it's just kind of covers all the checkpoints on what you see in the rubric. So I included this. You can have a look at it. It's not like it's just a single PDF, but it really shares with me, and anybody reading it what the person is planning on doing, what their risks are, some comps, and some wireframes, and some IA diagrams. So I think that between those two, maybe you can get some ideas. And if you want more, let me know. I can go find some more examples from previous quarters. Okay, I have one more thing here. Let's see. Yes, I have some notes here. Um, I know some of you are concerned about getting full credit, the full points. Here are the basic requirements. You're going to need one feature relying on JavaScript. So this doesn't even need to be a JavaScript project. You could have a total design project, but it does need to have at least one feature relying on JavaScript. It needs some third-party data. That means an API. It needs third-party analytics, so that means Google Analytics. In the end, you will just attach an analytics to this page. If you're using a framework like Vue.js, you're going to probably want to use the Vue.js analytics, because when you're dealing with a single-page app, which is what Vue is, testing views to see which views did they go look at requires a little bit of extra, but there is a library to do that. Accessibility, so you've studied that, and so just using good contrast layout is important, and looking at using good quality fonts, these are important. Cross-browser and responsive, so it's got to run on the three main browsers, Safari, Firefox, and Chrome, and then responsive, it should run on a mobile as well as desktop. And then loaded on a public server. So most people do use GitHub Pages, but there are some other alternatives. And depending on what project you choose, like if you are using OAuth, you will want to deploy to not GitHub. GitHub won't work for something like that. You'll deploy to Firebase, or there's a couple other options out there. So if you do decide to use some authentication using OAuth, you're going to want to change the server that you deploy to. But in any case, it's going to be public. You want to use CSS. You want to have IA and storyboards in your oh, this is more focusing, on putting together the whole project. So looking at the design part, IA and storyboards. And storyboards can be as involved as you want. Like I showed you the tool XD, you could get into that. But sometimes it's as simple as just wireframing. Project plan, so I want to see some outline. And I created a little visual here to show what I see students, this is just kind of a general pattern, how this project evolves. So you start with design docs in week 4. In week 5, you scaffold your project, so get some repos going. Maybe even try to get a place where you can render, set that up, even if that has to change over the course of the quarter. So basically get something going on GitHub. Dev and prod up on week 6. Data on page. So I say week 7. I'd say as soon as possible. So that's usually a challenging part. Get your API, get some code in there that is reading an API. I know some of you are getting really good at that. One student has actually just created a whole slew of repos that bring in different APIs, and it shows really good work on just really understanding how to get a Vue app up and read some data. So that's something, and I definitely think getting that in by week 7 is really important. And then if you have routes and views, get those up by week 8. And I call this MVP. MVP stands for minimum viable product. So this is really important in modern programming, is the idea that you achieve your minimum goals. So you have an app that does what it is meant to do at a minimum. Get that up and running, because that's what you iterate on. So definitely think about this concept of MVP and how you can get the features that you want up and running. And generally for a capstone project, a lot of that involves data, views, and routes. So you haven't maybe gotten into any of your extra features. When you're planning a big project like this, you you should think in terms of features, and you should think of the minimum features that, and then you should think of additional features, and you put these on your backlog or your list, and you prioritize them, and the ones that are most important you get done first, and a set of them that make for a complete product defines your MVP. And it's good to aim for week 8 having your MVP. Now this can be challenging because you're on your own here, so it's going to be real tempting at summer to just say, well, I'll just kind of put something together here in my design doc, and then I'll kind of hang out, and then by week 9 I'll come in and just kind of get my app done. But really, I think chipping away at it week by week, you're going to turn out with a better product, and it's going to be less stressful for you too. And then week 9 you can get into style and accessibility. Week 10, get your analytics in, and testing, fixing, and sharing. All right, so go ahead and get a design doc, get your plan going, and then get that turned into me Sunday night. And even if you don't have a full plan, your document isn't complete, turn it in Sunday night. This quarter is a lot about doing things on a regular basis and getting things turned in on time. So a lot of what you'll be doing after this week is status reporting. But for this week, you're going to work on getting a document in, and I think you're all doing really good at putting these together, so just focus on that, and let me know if you have any questions about what you want to do your project on. I can, even if before you even start writing your doc, you can shoot me a Slack and just mention what you're going to do, and I can tell you if I think there's going to be any issues, something that might end up throwing you off course. So I encourage you to do that. And talk to your classmates about it too. They are getting to be as good a source as any of information about how things might work and not work for you. So don't think that you have to do this all by yourself. There's a lot of resources around here. Okay, I hope you have a good week, and I will be in lab every day this week. There are no meetups, so just come to lab if you need help or Slack me. Okay,